Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Shannon Seban, and I am the Director of European Affairs at the Combat Antisemitism Movement. And we decided to organize this webinar today because the events of the past week represent a major turning point in the Middle East and potentially for the global order. As you know, 6 days ago, Israel and the United States launched what they describe as a preventive military operation against the Iranian regime. And the initial strike eliminated Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and targeted key components of Iran's military infrastructure, including ballistic missile capabilities, air defenses, and strategic assets. And regardless of how the situation evolves in the coming days and weeks, it is clear that we are now witnessing a historic moment whose consequences will more probably extend far beyond the region. And to help us unpack these issues, we are honored to be joined today by two outstanding speakers, and I would like to thank you again for being with us today. First, Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zehavi, retired IDF intelligence officer and a leading expert on regional security dynamics. Sarit, you will help us understand the military and strategic dimensions of the current conflict, including the scope of the war, the potential restructuring of Iran's power system, and possible endgame scenarios. Thank you again, Sarit, for being with us tonight. And we are also joined by Sarah Raviani. Sarah, you are a political commentator and strategic communications professional specializing in Iran, the Middle East, and U.S. foreign policy. And Sarah has extensive experience across American, Iranian, Arab, and Israeli political cycles. She has worked closely with the U.S. Congress on national security and foreign policy legislation, including the 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act. And she will help us bringing an important perspective on Iranian public opinion and the Iranian diaspora. Before we start, I just want to remind each of you that you will be able to ask your questions over the chat during the session. Please feel free to do so. Um, and before we start, I will maybe start with Sarit. About the nature of this war, Sarit, how would you characterize the type of the war we are witnessing? Is this still like a regional conflict, or can we say it now? Are we definitely entering something much broader?
If you take United States out because the US, there is no fight on US soil, but only in the Middle East, I do believe that it is a regional conflict, but it has global implications that goes to issue of economy, politics, and even security all across the world. And here it's very important to say a few words about what is this exactly? Like what is going on here? And I want to say something surprising. It's not about the nuclear program. It is also about the nuclear program. But there is something much more essential here, which is the question of who is holding the nuclear program. What is this Ayatollah regime in Iran? And this is something that I feel, and I asked you before we went online about President Macron. This is something that I feel that is misunderstood. Iran for decades, or the Islamic Republic of Iran for decades, was viewing Israel as the small devil and the United States as the big devil. And not only for a colonialist reason, not only for a bad experience, maybe I should put it this way, with the Americans in the 50s, but also thanks to religious radical ideology of the Muslim Shiites that believe that the supreme leader of Iran, everybody should be completely loyal to, that believe that Western values are an enemy if it's democracy, freedom, human rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, freedom of speech, equality, everything we believe in is not part of what they believe in. who believe in the society of, I wouldn't say resistance, but the culture of death, I'll put it this way, martyrdom, and 100% loyalty to the supreme leader, who's supposed to be also the most senior cleric. But I'm saying supposed to be because Khamenei was not exactly that, and now everybody's talking about his son who will be the successor, and he's not exactly that. But the idea is complete loyalty to the supreme leader. So this is definitely not
Mhm.
democracy. While even if you have elections, those who can be elected are only those who are religious and or parliament members that are getting the confirmation by the supreme leader that they can be elected. Uh, Iran for decades is all about violation of human rights, is all about the nuclear program, the ballistic missiles program, and the cultivation of proxies. And here I want to emphasize one more thing. After the previous deal, the JCPOA in 2015 with President Obama, the project of cultivating proxies was blooming. A lot of money came in, and Iran could build the capabilities and dangerous capabilities of the militias in Iraq, in Syria, which they already lost, in Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the Houthis of Yemen. All of that happened in those years. And in Syria, the only thing that eventually brought to the defeat of the Muslim Shiite axis is actually what we had done to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So this is like, to put things in order. And since you
Yeah.
wanted me to connect that to the global question here,
Mhm.
Iran in the past few days already attacked 10 countries out of sided with Israel. Israel is the 11th one. Okay,
Exactly.
which including Turkey, which is a member of NATO, including Qatar, who was in good relationship with Iran, and including Oman, who was the mediator for the negotiations and actually was sponsored by Iran in many means. So the idea of Khamenei or the legacy of Khamenei is to create a turmoil, is to make it a global crisis. That's why they announced that the hormone straits are closed, and I'm very, very happy that the president announced that they are open and people should travel there and don't buy those lies. And the first target was the Navy to make sure to open the straits. By the way, it doesn't mean that everything will be excellent in the straits. Things can happen. Iran is still holding small boats in those places, terrorist boats, I mean, that can attack the ships. Um, but the main force of this navy is gone. So this is one thing about global effect, which
Yeah.
is the economy and the
Mhm.
capability to export oil from the Arab Gulf or Persian Gulf elsewhere. And the second is what I want to mention is the issue of terror all over the world, including in Europe. This is an option. And what Europe don't understand is when you enable educational centers that educate children to hate the Western culture and all the values that I've talked about, eventually we end up having terror in your countries. And Iran was investing a lot of money and resources in establishing those centers. Like everybody's talking about the radical Sunni centers of the Islamic
Mhm.
Brotherhood. That's
Mhm.
correct. But there are also Muslim Shiite centers that are not fan of the Western culture. I'm not talking in general about Muslim Shiites. That's not the idea. Um,
Understood. Thanks a lot, Sarit, for this. And that was precisely my question, because we can see that this war is kind of specific at some point because we are seeing dynamics involving multiple actors, and you said it, like Arab states, militias, and even tensions involving countries like Turkey. We have also seen attacks involving Qatar, the UAE, and diplomatic tensions across the region. My following questions will be according to you, Sarit. Do you see this conflict like reshaping alliances and signaling the emergence of like a new geopolitical order at some point?
I think this is the opportunity here. Like we've been talking a
Mhm.
lot about the risks of the campaign, and there are risks, and probably we'll discuss this further today. but it's good that we are actually starting with the opportunities. There is a huge opportunity here, and as an Israeli, I am looking at the Gulf countries that Iran didn't hesitate to attack. Actually, the country that suffered the majority of attacks was the UAE, but they are not the only ones. You know, twice attacks against Aramco in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
and I mentioned the attack against Qatar, and all other Gulf countries suffered attacks from Iran. I truly hope that this will be a platform for relationship between
Mhm.
Israel and those countries. I truly hope that this platform, which is now could be, it's not yet, but it could be a military platform or a security-based platform, will become in the future a civilian platform for relationship. Sinwar of Hamas carried out October 7. He had a few goals. One of them was to eliminate the normalization process between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And
Mhm.
we were saying that he succeeded. In this, he succeeded. By the way, he didn't succeed in anything else, but in this, he succeeded. And I hope that now, with everything that is going on, we will be able to renew this track and maybe end up, I'm not sure about normalization, but at least end up with some kind of new partnerships, new relationships, and collaboration around different issues. I think Israel has a lot to contribute, not only around security, but also around security. And I think this is a huge opportunity here. For us specifically, I am speaking to you from my bomb shelter 9 kilometers from the Lebanese border.
Yeah.
It's the issue of Hezbollah.
Mhm.
This is an opportunity to bring a true change to the region with respect of the failed states here that suffered the effect of the Muslim Shiite axis of Iran, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Iraqi militias, or even in Syria to bring more stability,
Yeah.
even though it's a different issue. So yes, here there is a huge opportunity. Israelis here up north are expecting this. We are all encouraging the government to continue the attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon and not to stop until we are positive that all the strategic capabilities and the threats of Hezbollah are gone.
Thanks a lot, Sarit, for that. I'm just like jumping to something that you just mentioned. So I can definitely see that in your speech, you are quite like hopeful. And thanks a lot for that. And we really hope that this will bring like a new perspective for the whole region at some point in order to bring peace. My next question will be like, according to you, what can block this? What can be, let's say, the obstacles to peace at some point? Like we can see definitely that when Khamenei was eliminated, then he was like replaced by someone else. Like, how do you see this? And do you think that it could be blocked at some point, or what can help in order to unlock the situation at some point to bring peace?
Um, the first thing that comes to mind is the question of how long this campaign is going to be and whether we actually succeed in getting rid of the Ayatollahs of Iran, which we are not completely positive that we will
Uh-huh.
succeed. The mission of the American attack and the Israeli attacks is not to occupy Iran or to, have a new king, okay? The mission is to set the terms for the Iranian people to do
Mm-hmm.
that. This is the meaning of help is on the way. It's help, it's not replacing what the Iranian people should do. Maybe it's a question to Sarah here, whether they will succeed or not, I don't know. But if they will fail and they won't do what is expected, and the Iranian army will not defect, and the Islamic Republic will survive, it will be much more cruel. It will be very active, and you can be positive that the next day after the ceasefire,
Yeah.
all the projects that I've mentioned, the cultivation of the proxies, the ballistic missile program, and nuclear program will work full power again while the Iranian people is oppressed, experiencing terrible economic conditions,
Yeah.
and no investment in the infrastructures, in the civilian infrastructures in Iran itself. So this is one risk.
Yeah.
And the second risk is a continuancy of this war. It's very important the campaign will be limited in time and that we will succeed in bringing the achievement that I've talked about in a limited amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I don't know whether it will succeed, but it's important even for us as Israelis because the Iranians can go for months to drop one or two ballistic missiles against Israel,
Absolutely.
which destroy a neighborhood. Each of them that we miss intercepting destroys a neighborhood, and it's the same with Hezbollah. The third risk is what will happen in Iran afterwards. And here I am not very optimistic. Like I do think that it will take a while to stabilize Iran if the Islamic Republic will fall. I do believe that it's not going to be in weeks. It's going to take months and maybe even more than months, to reestablish the state and the state systems. It will take a while. Somebody will step in. There is never a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And with even with that risk, I must say, and it's a risk, and we all remember what happened in Iraq and in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
With that risk, I want to say that if we will not do that, the option, the other alternative is worse. And that's why it was important that Trump would do what he had to do, because the alternative of not keeping its promise of help is not on the way and not eliminating the ballistic missile program and the nuclear program means that, as I've said, it will happen. They will have nuclear weapon and they will have enough ballistic missiles to create a nuclear effect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was important. Other than that, it would damage the reputation of President Trump that was built in the past few years as a man of his word if
Yeah.
he didn't keep his promise. And that's why it was so important to do that.
Thanks a lot for that. Thank you, Sarit. I will maybe just move to Sarah now to have like another perspective, which is also related to the public opinion. If we remember back in January, we had like demonstration in the streets, like in Iran, all started by the streets. And Sarah, you are like specialized in Iran, the Middle East, and U.S. foreign policy. And my first question to you, like, what are you hearing right now about like public sentiment inside Iran? Like how ordinary Iranians reacting to these events? I'm speaking from France and I can see it across Europe. Like we have plenty of demonstrations in the streets in order to support Iranian people. But what can you feel and how do you see this?
So, unfortunately, we are coming out of one of the bloodiest massacres in modern history that the Iranian people experienced in January. And prior to the military strikes beginning, the Iranian people were in a state of mourning, but also in a state of continual fighting. They never stopped rising up, and even to this day, they are still speaking out against the regime and trying to make their voices heard. Now, that is under a now 100 hour internet blackout where the regime has now cut off the internet. So we are getting very, very limited word from inside of Iran, but we know that repression is at its peak. When the regime in Iran is under attack, it lashes out at its citizens. And so we are now seeing reports from inside of Iran where dissidents and the families of those who were murdered in previous uprisings, they are
Mhm.
now being arrested and punished. So as brutality peaks inside of Iran, hope is still alive. And that's something that is very promising because the Iranian people are a very resilient people and they will never stop fighting for their freedom. They've been under a brutal dictatorship for the past 47 years, and that's only strengthened their resolve. What was meant to crush them and what was meant to kill them has only made them stronger. And I think that that's one of the most inspiring things that we can see from the outside world looking in is that strength and that resilience of the Iranian people who refuse to submit to their oppressors.
Absolutely. And this is definitely what we can feel also on the ground and also on the social media and so on. We can definitely feel this. And my next question will be maybe like we are hearing at some points also, Sarah, some reports of demonstrations supporting like Khamenei, and we all wonder like how real are these demonstrations? Who is organized? Like who is let's say organizing like this demonstration, and who is participating?
So, something that people often forget is that Iran is a very big country and the population is vast. There are 90 million people inside of Iran, and I would say 5 to 10% at least are either affiliated with the regime or support the regime, whether that be for ideological reasons or monetary reasons. So the participants in these protests rallying around the regime are from regime supporters and affiliates themselves, which would be the IRGC and the Basij, who take to the streets. But I would caution anybody who is seeing any of these large reports of a rallying around the flag effect to understand that these are people who are forced to go out there into the streets and to show support. And oftentimes, the propaganda machine of the regime, it's very vast and it's very sophisticated. They will recycle old videos. They know how to make a crowd of 100 people look like 1,000 people. They are master manipulators at information warfare. And unfortunately, following October 7th, we have seen a lot of manipulation in the media from different large accounts pushing information that doesn't necessarily reflect the reality on the ground. And the reality on the ground is that the vast majority of Iranians, both inside and outside the country, despise the regime in Iran.
Yeah. So specifically because you are speaking about the regime, if the current power structure collapses or weakens significantly, and we hope that it will be that will collapse, do you see like any figures or like movement that could emerge as credible leadership alternatives? We often hear about like Pahlavi. What's your feeling about that? And are there like other credible alternatives? I also hear that President Trump also raised this topic, like who will be the next leader in Iran? Like, what's your view on this?
The most consistent voice for a free and democratic Iran is Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He has spoken up for the past several decades in support of the Iranian people, and the Iranian people took to the streets en masse to shout his name from the streets, saying, "This is the final battle. Pahlavi will return." They fought, they bled, and they died shouting his name. I do believe he is the only credible alternative. He is the only voice that the Iranian people trust in order to lead the transition to a democracy in Iran.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Sarah. Very clear. And this is like what we can hear also. So this is like definitely aligned with the vision that we can all have on this. So thanks a lot. I now have a question to both of you, Sarit and Sarah. As you know, like at the Combat Antisemitism Movement, like we monitor on a daily basis, like not only geopolitical developments, but also like the social consequences of global conflict, particularly the way they affect Jewish communities worldwide. And unfortunately, we have already seen a worrying surge in anti-Semitism linked to the current situation in Iran. I can, for example, share with you that according to the data that are collected by our Anti-Semitism Research Center, 33 out of the 92 incidents recording so far this week, that means more than 1 in 3, involve anti-Semitism connected to the war with Iran. These incidents can include, let's say, hate speech accusing Jews of Zionist oppression against Iran, pro-Hamas symbols displayed at demonstrations, calls for resistance against Israel, or even mosques glorifying Ayatollah Khamenei. So this is precisely like why conversation like the one we are having today are essential to provide facts, context, and analysis at a time when misinformation and ideological narratives like spread rapidly. My next question would be like, what's your view like about this Iran spreading anti-Semitism and anti-Western speeches that we can see so far?
Uh, Look, this has been going on since October 7th.
Yeah.
And I feel huge hypocrisy.
Mm.
People went out to the streets for the Palestinians, for the Gazians, and nobody went out to the streets for the Iranians in January 8th. And I don't understand that. It's like it's societies that are proud of taking care of human rights
Mm-hmm.
and democracy. And where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you? How come you ignore the facts? Now, I understand why this is happening. It is happening because people are adhering to the colonial narrative and they view what United States and Israel is doing as a colonial policy. But let's set the facts right. Trump came to help the Iranian people after he promised that while the Iranian people went out to the streets and were massacred, or actually genocide, if you like, in January 8th. This is one thing. And the second, the part of this colonial narrative that, by the way, is blooming in the universities. I myself graduated Middle Eastern Studies, and as a young student, this was first lesson, okay? The issue of colonialism in the Middle East. This narrative of colonialism in the Middle East is doing two bad things. First, it makes us objects. Like the people of the Middle East has no decision. It's all about superpowers play, and we have no rights of to say what we believe in, no responsibility, by the way. So this is wrong. We do have responsibility for our own destiny, and we do affect our future, and we do have a say, and stop treating us as a young child. That's one thing. Second, specifically about Israel, this colonial narrative viewed the Israelis as colonialists, but
Yeah.
actually, half of the Israelis are from the Middle East, and we came back to our homeland. That's it. It's just very, very simple. In any case, anti-Semitism view the Jews as foreigners. And if they view the Jews as foreigners, Judaism is not just a religion. Judaism is a nationality. We are the people of
Mm-hmm.
Israel, and Israel is here where I'm based now. And those are the facts. It's the simple facts. And instead of feeling guilty about colonialism that happened 100 years ago, it's time to feel guilty for not assisting the poor people of Iran and being there for them. And it's really, really awkward that the only people that stood by the people of Iran and paid the price is the Israelis. We are paying a price for what is happening now, and we were willing to do that. We all understood how important this is uh, to help the Iranians to do what they have to do.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Sarit. What about you, Sarah? What's your view on this rising anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic like context related to Iran? How do you analyze this?
I feel like I see such a different perspective as an Iranian who has opened up my heart and mind to the Jewish community. It honestly is very painful to me to watch people that have stood so closely with us and support us be affected in such a negative fashion just for existing in their own terms. And that's something that's very ugly. And I think it's very, very awful that it has become so popular to hold these opinions and to spread these anti-Semitic tropes. And I believe after October 7th, we've seen a rise in media personalities and people on social media who get overnight fame for their Jew hatred. And it's quite vile that these people are given such large platforms to spew this hatred that turns into awful violence against the Jewish community, but also just a very negative space on social media and in our own communities. And I also believe that this builds on the information warfare that the regime has perpetrated since October 7th, where they have largely been behind a lot of this. They have bot farms on social media where they can spread their own narratives, and it's just very nasty. But I would like to say, especially to the Jewish community and those who are watching this, you are loved. And as an Iranian-American, I can say that come to one of our protests and you will see with an Israeli flag or with visible Jewish symbols, you will see just how loved and cared for you actually are and how appreciative Iranians are for the people of Israel and for Jews. So don't get so hung up on the social media chatter, because in our community and in our hearts and our minds, you guys are just as valuable and a beautiful and resilient people who have so much in common with the Iranian people, because you have chosen to survive, but not only survive, but survive beautifully.
Thank you.
Wow, you both are bringing peace. It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Thanks a lot, Sarit. So, if you agree, I just would like to give the floor to those who are participating to the webinar today, because we have like many questions. If you agree, so we have a first question. I will read it. I have read that Iran gave major funds to set up the Sharia law in London. Is that true?
Uh, I don't know. I don't have information around that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are a lot of Islamic centers and mosques that operate as fronts for regime propaganda, and there is a lot of support, unfortunately, amongst those communities, and they do weaponize faith as a shield to hide not only anti-Semitism, but also outright support for the regime in Iran. And a lot of these mosques and Islamic centers, right now, we do see them hosting memorials for Ali Khamenei, who is one of the most brutal dictators of our time. And I do find that to be very appalling. And it's quite concerning that leadership, both in Europe and in the United States, seem to not want to crack down on this and not want to stop it, because it is quite dangerous. We just saw in Austin, Texas, there was a man who opened fire in a public area, and he was wearing a shirt that said property of Allah, and then underneath the shirt he had on another shirt with a regime flag on it. And
Yeah.
it seems that this was a attack in support of the regime and lashing out at Americans who have nothing to do with this conflict. So I do believe that this is something that we need to be mindful of. And this is something that the people of these countries, us in the West, we can speak out to our legislators and make them aware that this is happening. It's dangerous. It doesn't only target Jews and Iranians, but it targets everyone. And this is why we should put an end to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about the role of Turkey. What do you see as Turkey's likely role in this going forward, including in the situation where rumors that the US is thinking of harming the Iranian Kurds prove correct?
Okay, I'll say a few words about Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO. We
Yeah.
tend to forget that. it's time not to forget that, and it's time to do something with that. That's one thing. Second, Turkey allegedly is supposed to be a natural rival of the Islamic Republic as part of the competition over the hegemony in the Middle East, and especially over Syria, by the way. But there is a specific interest of Turkey here not to bring to the fall of the regime and
Mm-hmm.
not to bring to a situation of chaos in Iran because of the Iranian Kurds. The Kurds are the only nation in the Middle East that don't have a state, and they are living in Turkey, in Iran, in Syria, and in Iraq. And if they will succeed in having a state, they will bite territories from each of those countries. And this is what all these four countries are sharing.
Mm-hmm.
The campaign against any option that the Kurds will become a nation state. If there is a chaotic situation in Iran, if the Islamic Republic is falling, this raise the power of the Turks, the Iranian Turks, and there are already rumors that there are militias that are armed in those places next to the border with Iraq or the Kurdish areas of between Iran and Iraq that will participate in falling the regime. Erdogan is very much worried of a flow of refugees
Mm-hmm.
into Turkey, Kurdish refugees that will undermine the situation inside Turkey, and very much worried from strengthening the Kurdish issue and the Kurdish unity in those places. And that's why he prefers a strong regime that can oppress all Iranians, including the Kurdish Iranians.
Thanks a lot, Sarit, for that. We have plenty of questions. I hope we will have time to answer all of them, but I will pick it like in the order. I have seen over the past week and several years strong support for Israel from Iranians in the US. What is the percentage of Iranians in Iran who, one, support Israel, two, wish for the destruction of Israel, or three, are on the fence?
I would say that if you see the support in the United States and that inspires you, just imagine that support times 10 from the people of Iran. The people of Iran have lived under a very brutal dictatorship, and they will stand very fiercely with anyone who supports them. So there is a large support inside of Iran and outside of Iran from the Iranian community that support the people of Israel and the Jewish community as well.
Mhm. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Another question, I will read it for you. First of all, I beg to differ about the prospect of Pahlavi being the only option for a leader. Only part of the Iranian people support him, and made me remember also the negative aspect of his father's leadership. The question is the following. What is your estimation about the rise of anti-Semitism even more now that we see so many conspiracy theories about the rule of Israel and the Jews in the war?
So I think on that first part of the question, again, we have to listen to voices inside of Iran. I didn't hear any other leader's name chanted in January or any time prior other than the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. And the second part of the question, could you please repeat?
Yeah, sure. The second one was, what is your estimation about the rise of anti-Semitism even more now that we see so many conspiracy theories about the rule of Israel and the Jews in the war?
And
I
I think
think
that also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
you can have endless excuses to be anti-Semite. Like it doesn't matter. So it's this and that and October 7 and tomorrow it will be something else.
Like it's only kind of an alibi at some point to be, of course, yeah. Thanks a lot. The next question is to Sarah. Iran is home to a Jewish, Christian, Baha'i, and more communities. Can you share more about the regime is suppressing these communities?
Yes, so I'm actually a Christian, and that issue is very near and dear to my heart. In the most recent uprising, there were several dozen Iranian Christians who were killed, and it's a very, very persecuted community.
Mm-hmm.
My heart just bleeds for the Christians of Iran who not only have to hide their faith and practice in underground churches, but also have to fear double the amount of repression just for choosing to live and follow Christ. And I think that it's very heartbreaking and very sad. And, the same for the Jews of Iran and the Baha'is who are extremely persecuted. There was a mass exodus of Jews from Iran following the 1979 revolution. And I don't think that many people remember what life was like for the Jews in Iran prior to the revolution. But prior to the revolution, Jews lived freely in Iran, and it was the largest community inside of the Middle East, and they were protected. And I think that what we want to see going forward as Iranians, both in the diaspora and inside of Iran, is that peace return for all ethnic and religious minorities inside of Iran going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Another question, and thanks a lot for your participation. I can see like many questions, so thanks a lot for that. I don't think that we'll have time to cover all the questions, but please feel free to reach out after if you still would like to have answers to your question. I will maybe take this one. What is your opinion, Sarah and Sarit, on the obvious, however not expressed contradictions between Israeli goal and U.S. goal of this war?
I think it goes hand in hand. It's kind of, truly an unbelievable situation that we have here, that
Mm-hmm.
the Israeli interest and the American interest became very, very close to each other. It's a nuance, the differences. Both of us understood. There are so many expressions in Hebrew, I can't think of one in English, of that we are making history, okay? That it's now is the time, and we cannot miss this opportunity to bring a true change that, and we discussed this, that will create impact not only in Iran itself, but also in the region and globally. And it will bring true security. And for Israelis, this is, again, I don't know how even to start to explain, like sitting here in the bomb shelter while sirens are outside and drones are penetrating into Israel as we speak from Hezbollah. And we had 8 attacks came from Iran today and almost 40 from Hezbollah today. And to
Mm-hmm.
understand that we have an opportunity to eliminate those threats and to finally live differently, especially in northern Israel, live in peace, and not to be afraid anymore from ballistic missiles that destroy neighborhoods. And all of that thanks to an American interest, which is a different interest, avoiding ballistic missiles that can put Europe at risk, that can put American assets in the Gulf at risk, that can nuclear capabilities that can undermine the stability of all over the world. The understanding in the United States of how important all of that, and the understanding in the United States that the Iranians were cheating in negotiations, all of that, it's truly unbelievable. While we are celebrating a holiday,
Mm-hmm.
Purim, that it's all about a story that is very, very similar to what we are experiencing now.
True. Maybe you can remind those who are listening to us what the story is about.
It's about an amazing, brave woman named Esther, and we are all three women, so I'm starting from the woman that became the queen of Persia. And since she became the queen of Persia, she succeeded in rescuing the Jewish people from a plot of Haman, who was the senior advisor. You can compare him to Khamenei. We are comparing him to Khamenei, to extinct all Jews in the Persian kingdom. And she succeeded, since she was the queen, she succeeded in convincing the king to hang Haman and to rescue the Jews. And it ended, happily ever after. And it's a story that we all appreciate and we all love and we celebrate every year. By the way, a shared history of the Persians and the Jews.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A happy story.
Thanks a lot, Sarit. And maybe one last question, which is the following for you, Sarah, I guess. I agree with Sarah's comments about us being loved, but using her numbers of 5% of the population as regime friends, can it still be safe to show Israel or Jewish pride at a gathering?
At a gathering outside of Iran in the West, absolutely. You would have no problem showing up to an Iranian-American rally as a visibly Jewish person, and you would be embraced with open arms, and you would see that the Iranian people themselves bring the Israeli flag and fly it proudly, and you would absolutely just feel the warmth and the hospitality of the Iranian diaspora if you decided to attend one of those rallies in support of the Iranian people. And I think I encourage everyone to actually do it if you live outside of, Iran or the Middle East and you have access to a rally near you, please do go and experience it. Even if you can experience our culture just by going to a Persian restaurant, I really do encourage you to do that because our food is great, our people are hospitable, and they love the Jewish people. And there's so much more in common between us than we even know and realize on a day-to-day basis. We are the best of friends.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. So I think that we are now going to the end of this webinar. So thank you both of you for this insight. What is definitely clear from this discussion is that the stakes go far beyond a single military confrontation. And we are potentially witnessing a moment that could reshape the Middle East, influence global security dynamics, and redefine, I guess, the ideological struggle between authoritarian extremism and democratic societies. And at the Combat Antisemitism Movement, we will continue to monitor these developments closely and work with partners to counter anti-Semitism. This webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for your participation. I wish you a good afternoon or a nice evening for those who are in Europe. Thanks to all of you. Be safe and let's keep in touch.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having us.
Sarit. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.